Let's get into the canon backstory of Coraline's neighbors, Miss Spink, Miss Forcible, and Mr. Bobinsky. Hey family members, I'm Megan, this is the Fangirl, and every single year on my birthday I release a new Coraline video, which has gotten notably harder and harder to do because I've made a million Coraline theories and I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I've got a few ideas left and still several letters that I need to respond to, so if you are waiting to see a video based on a letter you sent in, it is eventually coming. It's just a little bit haywire here since my husband started cheating on me. So don't fret, because at least your life is not in as much chaos as mine, at least hopefully. But today, I want to debunk some of my theories by presenting you all with fact-ies. See, the problem is, I got in on Coraline theory videos pretty early on in their rise to popularity, so way back in the olden days of 2016. Back then, the movie had come out in 2009 and pretty promptly died off. Very few people were talking about Coraline. It was just this forgotten cult classic. But then, the theorizer burst into the scene with a bunch of theories, and others like myself started following suit. And now, 5 years later, you can't even go into a hot topic without tripping over Coraline merchandise. It's definitely Laika Studios' flagship movie. They've also made some other great, really well-executed movies like Missing Link, Kubo and the Two Strings, and Paranorman, so if you haven't seen those, check them out. But with all the back-end success of Coraline, it has prompted a lot of research and discussion that just didn't exist back in 2016. So today, I want to go over some of the details that have been more thoroughly and officially established since the start of my movie theories, and we're going to particularly focus on Coraline's neighbors. Having said that though, I'm actually going to ease us into this by looking at Coraline's cake that was given to her by the other mother. It's a simple cake, it just says, "Welcome home" in cursive. And the idea is that this cake is going to help manipulate Coraline so that she feels more at ease. You know, she gets this false sense of security because who's going to give you a cake and kill you? As Eddie Izzard would say, it's cake or death, not cake and death. But Laika pays so much attention to the details that I would like you to take a look at the O's on that cake. Notice how the O in welcome has one loop and the O in home has two? Well, there's an info meme that I've seen circulating around where it explains that that means two separate things. So in the handwriting sciences, a single loop in the O represents a truth, and a double loop in the O would represent a lie, or you're being deceived in some way. So when you put welcome home together and analyze how it's written, what it means is that Coraline is welcome in the other world, but she is not home. That is such an amazing detail! And I'm not a handwriting analyst, so I would have never caught that on my own. And see, I get so irritated when people come into the comments and they're like, "It's just an animated movie. Nobody thought that hard about something meant for kids." I'm sorry, are you just plain dumb? Laika uses the mantra that the smallest details tell the biggest stories, and they painstakingly handcraft everything that we see in front of the camera. Nothing is an accident left to chance. And these tiny details are purposefully put into movies, yes, even animated ones meant for kids, so that you can unravel more and more details the more you watch that film. Because really, the first time you're watching a movie, you are probably going to miss everything that it doesn't railroad you into looking at. The camera is very controlling, it's very manipulative, especially in American films, and if there's a sideways look or an item on the table that's going to be important later, usually most people will only realize that it's there because the camera focuses on that for some amount of time. So you only see what's part of the story and main action. But the more and more you go back and watch the movie, the more you kind of get bored with what's going on and you start looking in the corners. You aren't as dead set staring at what the main focus is. You already know what's going to happen. And because you know what's going to happen, you start to notice these little things that were planted in that were subtle clues to lead you to what was going to happen by the end. You start to see a whole new world. I mean, film studies is amazing. And Coraline does such an amazing job of having all of these little tiny pieces and layers hidden all over the film that never directly get discussed. So you watch it and you're like, wow, that was a crazy story. And then you watch it again and again and again. And by the 5th or 6th time, you're like, hey, it was just President's Day. That's winter. How come all of the trees are in spring blossoms now? I think that means something. And yes, it has to, because they went out of their way to animate it that way. I mean, it's not like they went into a real store that had President's Day banners all over the place and they forgot to take them down. Somebody had to make those. Somebody had to make the blossoms on the tree. It is all important and relevant, even if they don't tell us why. And Neil Gaiman, the author of Coraline as a book, he put it really well in this masterclass I saw. He said, you're going to know this whole world, this whole universe, and it's going to have its own set of rules, but you're not necessarily going to tell them to your audience. And again, Coraline does such a good job of delivering on that. Okay, enough gushing. Now let's move on to talking about Miss Spink and Miss Forcible, the basement-dwelling old ladies. Initially, I had the strong impression that these two women were sisters. They work together, they live together, they bicker and talk over each other like siblings do, so that seemed like a natural fit. However, one day, Neil Gaiman himself answered a question on Tumblr from a fan, which read, "Hello, I was reading Coraline again, and something hit me. Are Miss Spink and Miss Forcible a couple?" Allegedly, Gaiman personally responded with, absolutely. Now, something I preach very heavily on this channel is that the book and the movie are alternate universes from each other, so what is true in one is not necessarily true in the other. But when you go back and look at how Miss Spink and Forcible are in the film, it does fit. I mean, for one, they don't have any children, only many dogs, which is sort of a stereotypical thing, especially back in the earlier 2000s, that you would expect to see from an older female-to-female couple. The ladies also starred in a burlesque show, and they talk about how they had so many admirers. And you would think that certainly over the years, especially with how attractive the two women were in their youth, that some of those admirers would have pursued them and probably won them over. And sure, they could just be very picky ladies that never found any guy that sparkled with them, but for neither of them to ever get married, even though they were both these very desirable, sexy symbols, that does seem odd, especially their age, where being married would have been not just expected, but almost demanded from society. Plus, the two ladies have managed to stay together, even though they're like, what, 70 or 80 at this point, whereas most co-stars have a habit of getting sick of each other and parting ways. Not to mention, both of their names are clearly prefixed with Miss, M-I-S-S, which implies they were never married. Neither of them are a Mrs. or a Miss, M.S., which implies that they were married but got divorced. So Spink and Forcible taking men's money for a living while those guys ogled something that they could never ever obtain, and it's strictly because the two women were only interested romantically in each other. That is such a fun, fantastic backstory. I'm sad I didn't piece it together sooner. The only thing that does raise an eyebrow for me is that the women are living in Oregon, and I can still remember Oregon coming up in the news around the 2009 era as being a very not friendly to anybody in the LGBT community type of place. I mean, it was like infamous. It was making it into jokes in TV shows and stuff. It was so bad. So yeah, it's not really the type of place that you would expect two lady lovers to settle down in the, late 80s, 90s, 2000s, whatever. And I think that issue is part of what thoroughly threw off my perception of their living situation before. It's not my fault, blame Oregon. Next, let's discuss everybody's favorite washed up Russian circus has-been, Mr. Bobinsky. There was a point in time years ago where I went through and meticulously searched through every Russian war medal that I could find, trying to get a match to what Bobinsky has on his chest. But maddeningly, I could never find a match. Because of the blood drop icon, I thought for sure he had to be some kind of field medic. But alas, nothing ever came up. What I never really considered, though, is that Russia is a very proud country, and the citizens there like to display their honor. And so they gave out medals for all kinds of things that weren't military related. Thanks to the intelligence of the internet, it has come to light that Mr. Bobinsky is wearing a medal that was given to people who participated in the Chernobyl cleanup. If you haven't heard of Chernobyl, it was a very famous nuclear accident that happened in 1986. The Soviet Union ended up bringing in, sometimes forcibly, 600,000 liquidators to try and stabilize the Chernobyl nuclear reactor site. And thousands of people in the cleanup crew died. So in this effort to kind of save face and make it look like some noble, heroic mission, the government started issuing medals to reward the liquidators for their efforts. I don't speak Russian, but I've been told the text reads, "Participant in cleanup campaign." So it's literally a participation trophy of a medal that Mr. Bobinsky still wears loud and proud over his heart. And that kind of reinforces the fact that Mr. Bobinsky does not have a lot of accomplishments in his life. I mean, no hate intended to Mr. Bobo here, but obviously things didn't go so great with the circus if he is spending all of his days in an attic in Oregon. Although it is fair to consider that Mr. Bobinsky might have had some side effects from the Chernobyl cleanup, seeing as how, I don't know, his skin is blue and all. Actually, radiation sickness can cause hair loss, and his big belly could be a result of fatigue, which is another side effect of radiation exposure. But radiation in general is colorless, so it's not gonna turn your skin blue or make you glow in the dark. And I know that for a fact because my soon-to-be ex works in the radiation field. Yeah, science! However, for someone's skin to turn blue, there are a few possibilities that could have happened. For example, a lack of oxygen or being exposed to colloidal silver can make you go bluish, grayish, greenish, silverish. And perhaps that is something connected to Bobinsky's cleanup time in Chernobyl, or maybe he just had a really unfortunate accident while he was traveling around with the circus. It's hard to say. But it's also interesting that Bobinsky lives in the US and not his homeland. It does suggest that he has these maybe salty feelings about the government of his place of birth, and that he was likely conscripted, or basically forced, to go do the Chernobyl cleanup against his will. And that's why he didn't retire to the Ukraine or Russia, where he would probably be more comfortable, at least culturally speaking. It's because Bobinsky doesn't trust his leaders not to endanger him further. Yet he's still so proud of what he did and that he survived that he never takes off that medal. It is interesting, and Bobinsky all by himself might warrant his own character case study at some point. But we'll see how it goes. I don't know, do people even want to watch Coraline videos anymore? I'll be looking at the stats and comments to find out, so make sure you like, subscribe, share, and don't forget to say happy birthday, because it's my first birthday in a long, long time as a single person, and I don't know how to cope with that. Anger, depression, anxiety, all of it is looming, and the cloud of doom is going to make me into Eeyore at any given time. Anyways, guys, I can't say theories are more fun because this wasn't a theory. These were all fact-ies. So it is reality because fact-ies are the truth. There, new sign out tagline. Bye, guys. I love you. But with all of the his skin is blue and all. His skin is blue. If you catch a sideways glance or an item on the table that will be important later, or, some dog... They've also made some... Every time I start recording, it's like all my sinuses in the back of my throat go, let's clog up. Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, "Hey McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that?" Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, The Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Fanily and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share one or two on social media, help spread the word. People who watch to the end of videos, like you, helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members. Bye.